Hey, how's it going, everyone? This week I will be transmitting classes from Humboldt. So I'm actually visiting an artist friend of mine, Richard Akers. He's here in Humboldt, and this is sort of an idea of like the space. He's a ceramic artist, so I will be looking for some examples in our area of artwork, right? At least in this local area, some artwork for if you're in my 2D design class, and I'll find some that are related to that. If there's some color theory, I'll see, because the color is a bit busier out here as far as what goes on in the murals and some of the design work in downtown. But if I come across something, I'll bring it to class and might have a little show and tell. If you're in my drawing class, hey, feel free to message me. It's no big deal, right? I just wanted to let you know that I'm out here, so the internet's pretty stable. If you have a question, the same thing, like if you got to reach me, go ahead and send me a message through Canvas, and then I'm going to give you a quick little walkthrough of some of the area here. So like I was mentioning, Richard Akers, he's a sculptor, right? And so he's got, definitely he's a wheel thrower. He also does hand-built ceramics. His space over here is really cool. He's in the middle of the redwoods, right? So pretty inspiring. He's retired. He used to teach at Contra Costa College. Our district is part of Contra Costa College, Diablo Valley College, and our college, which is Los Medanos. So he actually has a sculpture garden out here, and he's basically also doing earth art. So an idea of what that might look like if if you're looking at how things are built and fabricated and utilizing nature as sort of an inspiration, that's what you're going to find here. He's picking up sticks from the woods, right, and then creating almost like these fences. And so I think this is pretty interesting to see of like other ways of making work, right? You don't have to be complex in the materials that you use. You can grab from nature, you can be inspired by nature, and you can find ways to make your life a lot more inviting, right? See, he has this integration of like his hand-built ceramics, where these are kind of stacked, and he works from molds. And you can see these are actually like a monochromatic theme, right? Because in the concept of ceramics, you can be very intricate with your glazes, or you can kind of just use the glazes to help highlight the textures and format in the work, right? So just giving you a little quick tour of what we got going on here, because I think it's always interesting to see and grab inspiration from other artists and get a glimpse into the world that they like to live in, right? So I just thought, I might share this little experience with you. I think that's about it. Let's go ahead and go into your class. Well, hello, Art 20. So for our drawing class this week, I'm gonna just kind of cover some of what's in the module and maybe some like expectations or things you should be focusing on this week. You'll see like the basic overlay, we have a practice critique, and then basically your project, right? So I want you to really be dedicating time into your project. It's especially important that you're grasping some of those techniques that you're practicing with the egg drawing into your final drawing. So remember I said avoid outlining objects, try to work with that soft edge, hard edge. I'd like you to avoid outlining for your project. It's okay to lay out things in a really pale pencil, but try to control it through shading. Take a look at Ed Richet's drawings, right? Like, is he doing a cartoon outline of each letter, or is he actually just kind of where it's dark and say like a light tone? Is he taking those two contrasting values and creating an edge that way? That's called implied line. It's a soft edge versus hard edge. Hard edge is like a really sharp contrast in those two differences, and a soft edge is kind of where it blurs into the background, more of a gradient. So that's sort of the concept that I'd like you to apply to those. And looking at our, what is it that we're doing for a practice critique? Next week, you're critiquing each other's work. And so we're going to do a practice run with this exercise. Notice that there's a deadline this Wednesday, and then you have another one on Sunday. So try not to, I'm going to ask that just do your post on Wednesday, and then on between Thursday and Sunday, go ahead and do your replies, because there's going to be a larger choice to reply to. It's really important that we don't have like 12 people replying to the same person. I may ask you to do it again if that's the case. So that's why I'm giving you that heads up ahead of time. So this first half, we're kind of going into describing what is a critique and how does it work. And so if you haven't had a class with me before, there's this sort of like preparation where it's like these are general questions that we ask in a critique. So critiques are essentially like the informal test that you would have in artwork. It's after the work is done, artwork is visual communication, right? So I'm talking to the drawing class in a little more detail because often this might be your first exposure to a critique ever, and it would be in a drawing class whether you're an art major or not an art major. So the concept of a critique is essentially like being an informal analysis of the work. So it's kind of like you create the work, and drawing is visual communication. Now, in communication, the point is that you're the artist trying to get an idea across, right? So the question might come up like, was that artist good at getting their communication or communicating what they wanted to get through the artwork? And that's sort of your goal as, you're trying to create a narrative or a dialogue between you and the viewer. And so is that happening and is it successful? I think that's when we look at certain drawings, we get excited about them. It's because they start to create a dialogue in our head, and then we start talking with other people about it and seeing what they think. And that's kind of what the critique is. You're going through, you're kind of like describing exactly what you see. You're analyzing, like, how does this relate to like what I'm learning about the techniques applied in art or design, right? And then going into interpreting the work, like what is going on in this work? Like, what do I think it's about? And then going into deciding or evaluating, like, is this work good? Is it kind of weak? Is there an area that I would do different, or did this artist really excel at maybe something technically, or maybe they excelled at something in communicating the idea? So there's those two different types of I guess not two. There's a lot of different ways to interpret artwork, and so you have to really look at what is the artwork trying to do, and then respond to it that way. So what we're going to be looking at, you'll have this video here. It's actually pretty good video. I think this might have been PBS, but this artist talks, or I can't remember if she's an artist or an art. She might be an art historian. But she talks about the process of a critique. And so I'd like you to, think about that video when you're responding to work. I'd like you to use this sheet on the elements of art and principles of design. These are the terms we're covering in class. If you haven't already had an Art 5, which is art appreciation, or if you haven't had Art 10, which is two-dimensional design, we as a department really try to hammer all of these. So if you've taken another foundation course in the art department, you've already seen this sheet before. I want you practicing those terms. So in your response, right, we're going to be looking at describe, and then also, describe and interpret. So I'm going to edit this a little bit before we do our post by Wednesday. So we're going to be looking at this work by, I believe it's Sonia Lazo. And when you're looking at the artwork, don't just look at the artwork, also look at the little information piece down here that might tell you something about the artwork, and really spend some time, like, without writing or doing anything, just spend like 2 minutes looking at it and thinking about it. And go ahead and do your response. After Wednesday, then do your reply. Then I want you to reply to 2 of your classmates. Make sure that they're posts that haven't already had 2 replies. So if it's like you're number 3 or number 4, I might ask you to do it again. So just double check, make sure it's someone that hasn't been replied to or only has 1 reply. Going into the next part, I want you to be really focusing on your, thank you, Anastasia. I want you to really start focusing in on your project, right? So I'll get you some feedback to this week on your practice session with the Denman-Ross scale. And then you're going to start laying out your drawings for the ribbon word. And so when we're talking about, what are the expectations? Remember I mentioned that hard edge, soft edge? Do you see how these aren't outlined? If we zoom in on this, he's not outlining each little edge, right? This is controlled by value and just, how soft the shading is, as you know, this is a gradient that kind of goes into this white, and then where this contrasting like white edge of the X versus this middle gray of the X, right? That contrasting value is what's creating that edge. That's sort of like this would be kind of more of a hard edge. And looking for here's an example of a soft edge where we're going into this gradient down here coming up to the top right there. So often if you see a gradient, it might be a soft edge or blurry, and then a hard edge is kind of really like high contrast right at a really sharp edge. So yeah, back here it's a little bit of a soft edge, and this up here is a hard edge. Right, so that's sort of some visuals. I think that's about it for this week. If you got any questions, of course, contact me on Canvas. If it's something that's a little bit longer, I might leave you an audio comment in that reply. But if you have anything that pops up, maybe it's technical, maybe it's whatever, know that you have that option on the home page. If you go down to the bottom where my contact information is, right here, the Calendly appointments under contact, you can schedule an appointment with me anytime. Right? Anytime meaning like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. But you'll see that there's a lot of appointment time slots in there. So you can just kind of do this, sign up for the time you'd like to chat, and then I'm already seeing a couple of you this week from this class and a couple other classes. So it's a great way, like we can get a lot answered in like 15 minutes. So that's how these are set up. So know that you have that at your disposal. And I think I will talk to you all later. All right.